Good morning. I am Chair Councilmember Hillis, calling the meeting of the City Utilities Committee to order. I've been joined by my colleagues to my far right, Councilmember Kelsey Bond, followed by Councilmember Boone, followed by Councilmember Norwood, and to my immediate left, Vice Chair Bakhtiari, followed by Councilmember Dozier, followed by Councilmember Wan, and we do constitute a quorum. I will make a motion to adopt the agenda. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Bakhtiari. Please prepare the vote.
One moment. The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda has been adopted.
Approve the minutes of the prior meeting. Second by Vice Chair Bakhtiari.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The minutes have been approved.
7 yeas, 0 nays. Those minutes are approved. We have distributed an updated version of the City Utilities Committee goals and objectives for review, but we will wait one additional cycle to adopt them. So please let me know if you have any additions, revisions, etc. Moving on to public comment. We have one public commenter signed up, Mary Margaret Murphy. You'll have 2 minutes.
It's a common occurrence in the city of Atlanta. Mary Margaret Murphy, I actually don't have a comment. I am here representing Atlanta Botanical Garden. We were asked to attend by the city attorney's office, Ms. Lauren Clayton, so I just wanted to let you know I was here if anything's needed. Thank you.
Thank you for your attendance. We will wait on presentations. However, just as an update as to why you have 2 quarterlies from DWM, I guess the committee let the department off the hook back in 2025, so they did not present their last quarterly in 2025, so they've been allowed to submit that as a written report, so we will have the Q2 quarterly update after we handle legislation on our consent agenda.
Section H, ordinances for first reading. Item number 1, 2060-1102. An ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2026 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund budget in the amount of $8,000,000 to transfer funds from watershed reserves for appropriation to add funds to the Program Management Services Team project and for other purposes. Item number 2, 2060-1103. An ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta's Mayor's Office of Sustainability and Resilience to accept the 2025 Electric Innovation Award and award funds in the amount of $10,000.00 to support the city's ongoing sustainability, electrification, and resilience initiatives, to authorize the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 26 General Fund budget to anticipate and appropriate the award funds and for other purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We'll handle those the next cycle. Moving on to our regular agendas and ordinances for second read.
Item number 3, 2060-1010. An ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer or his designee to amend the FY 2026 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund budget in the amount of $1,166,700.00 to transfer funds from watershed reserves for appropriations to add funds to the R.M. Clayton Levee Improvements Project, Bolton Road Segment Phase 2, and for other purposes. Mr. Chair, the department requests to hold this legislation.
I have a motion to hold by Councilmember Wan, second by Councilmember Bakhtiari, but I would like to know the reason for the hold, given this is a project to address an issue that happened 17 years ago.
Don't everyone want the mic though?
Good morning, Chair and Committee. The reason, my name is Roland Lane, Director Lane, Watershed Management. The reason we're holding the paper is because it's going to be a companion paper for the next cycle. This is the money paper. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
So please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is open.
I don't have a voting screen. But I'm an aye.
Okay.
But I would like someone to fix the issue.
Okay. The vote is closed. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is held.
Item number 4, 26-0-1011. An ordinance by City Utilities Committee waiving Part 2, Chapter 2, Article 10, Division 4 of the Atlanta City Code, as well as any other conflicting code revisions, to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute the First Amendment to agreements listed herein for storm sewer improvements contract with Southeastern Site Development Incorporated and Precision 2000 Incorporated Joint Venture and Integral Municipal Services Corporation Rockdale Pipeline Incorporated Joint Venture, respectively, on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management to add funding in a combined amount not to exceed $7,500,000.00. All contract award will be charged to and paid from the fund department organization and account numbers listed herein and for the purposes.
Have a DC Mahajer down to speak to this.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Councilmember Alex Mahajer, Office of the Watershed Protection. This is a request to transfer $7.5 million from the Watershed Reserve to FY 2026 Water and Wastewater Renewal Extension Fund. This is the money to be spent on installation of green and gray infrastructure throughout the city to maintain, upgrade, and anything that relates to water resources. And the fund will be divided half and half between Southeastern Site Development and Rockdale Pipe Company. And this would help to increase water quality and to reduce the effects of the flooding throughout the city.
Thank you, DC Mahajer. Any questions from committee members? Councilmember Juan.
So is this amendment simply just authorizing the work but not adding funding?
No, Councilor, this is for the funding.
So,
7.5 million to be divided two ways, 50-50 between those two companies as needed. So when it comes the time for them to perform any work, they will have funding.
okay, so we last year authorized $7.5 million in the contract, the legislation number list. So we're adding another $7.5 million to it?
Correct.
All right.
No. This is 7.5 for now. I don't know how much of it last year it was spent or not, but for this request is to authorize 7.5.
Okay.
But the total fund is 15 million.
Okay, so we're waiving the code, and maybe Law can help on this. We're waiving the code because of the dollar amount of this amendment?
Yeah, I'm not sure you really had to waive the code since it's just waiving the dollar amount. It's not changing the scope. It could be changing the scope.
But we're doubling the contract within a year.
Yeah.
So,
It's a precaution, but it does waive the code.
okay. So one of the things I'm going to continue looking at this year is procurement. So we, just a year ago, less than a year ago, we let this out for for $7.5 million, and less than a year later, we're coming back and doubling that. And so what happened? Like, what happened in the original procurement? Did we not anticipate this? Did we under budget? Has the scope changed that much, or are we just adding more bells and whistles to existing contracts because it's convenient?
Council, this is not based on the projects that we have done. This is to authorize for the next year that when the projects do come, when the emergencies do come, that we would have access to the repair and upgrade of the system.
I understand that. I'm not questioning the purpose of this, but what I am questioning is the foresight when we go out the first time as to the scope and the amount and the level of work. And the fact that we're coming in less than a year later and doubling it goes to my point about how there's a disconnect, because we should have gone out a year ago with a RFP for $15 million. We may have gotten different results in terms of vendors. Either we're not projecting correctly, or we're falling into this trap of, hey, I got to get this work done. I got to be prepared, so I'm just going to go find a contract I can pile it on. So I appreciate that we're waiving the code and we're acknowledging that, but I'm a little disappointed that we're not getting full context as to what happened within a period of less than 12 months. So I'm going to abstain on this, Mr. Chair, because I think we deserve an explanation on that before Monday's meeting. And I'm just going to send to the administration, this is something I'm going to look at very, very closely this year. I've been talking about it for the last 4 years, but it's getting to the point where it seems like every committee meeting we're in, we get examples like this. And if we don't stop and ask the questions, we're just going to have the same pattern going forward. So I'm sorry that you're the one up there receiving all this, but I just want to make that observation, that comment going forward. Oh, I see the commissioner coming up.
Yeah, you'll see this in the quarterly briefing I'm about ready to give you. But what you're seeing is symptomatic of chronic underinvestment in multiple parts of the utility. Therefore, our unanticipated O&M, unanticipated capital repairs, all of those are going up and continue to go up because we're underinvesting chronically on the capital side long term.
I appreciate that explanation, but the chronic underinvestment is not a new phenomenon. I mean, we saw that 2 summers ago when we had the water main break that affected the entire city. So again, we just have to do a better job of anticipating this so that when we go out and solicit help and set up these contracts, that we're actually getting the best vendors that we can, because we are, asking for the right scope. If we go and ask someone for $1 worth of work, it's very different than if we're going out and asking for $10 worth of work. We're going to get much different level of interest. I know you know what I'm saying. I appreciate it. And I think, again, for procurements that y'all are working on now, I think, to your point, anticipating this turning the ship on the underinvestment, let's factor that into the procurements we're going into now. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Bakhtiari.
Real quick, Commissioner. Sorry, I know you almost escaped. Just to the point that, echoing everything Councilmember Juan said, but to the point where you were talking about underinvestments, I've heard you say this a lot. Is my understanding that you're implying that, to the point that we've been severely underinvesting, but it seems that it is much bigger than what we have been discussing? And is that something we're going to be diving into in the presentations to have more of an understanding of just how behind we are?
Yeah, well, I'll talk about that outlook in shifting our investment. So Atlanta has invested a lot in its infrastructure over the past 3 decades, and it has done a remarkable job upgrading our infrastructure. It's just unfortunately not been across the entire utility. We have been meeting the requirements of a federal consent decree for wastewater, and we've done a remarkable job in performing there. So I don't want to state that Atlanta doesn't invest in its infrastructure. It sure does. But we have certain areas that need more investment.
That's understandable. Thank you.
And just to be clear, this 7.5 and the prior 7.5, that is only to address emergency situations, or is this to address the very long list of stormwater projects that we all have seen?
It does include the list of the stormwater projects that we have. Certain projects we are able to do in-house, but certain projects, they have to be subbed out. So this contract, it would take care of the emergencies, maintenance, upkeep, and any new storm structures in green and gray.
Understood. I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Bakhtiari. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstention. This item is favorable.
6 yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstention. That item is favorable. Item number 5.
Item number 5, 26-01073, an ordinance by Councilmember Alex Juan authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the city of Atlanta to execute all appropriate documents granting the Atlanta Botanical Garden Incorporated, a Georgia nonprofit corporation, an access easement consisting of approximately 13,381 square feet over, through, and upon a portion of city-owned real property located at 1491 Piedmont Avenue Northeast, Atlanta, Georgia, 30309, Fulton County, in land lot 55 of the 17th District, parcel ID number listed herein, also known as the West Property, for the purpose of constructing, utilizing, and maintaining an access road, waiving any conflicting provisions of Article 10, Division 4, Subsection 3 of the Atlanta City Code of Ordinances and for other purposes.
Chairman Hillis, members of the committee, good morning to you. Marcus Butts, Department of Watershed Management, Office of Engineering Services. The matter before you is related to the granting of an easement for an access road, which will support the comprehensive plan for the Piedmont Park area. We've evaluated the matter and have found no operational conflicts, so we are supportive of the granting of the easement.
Thank you, Mr. Butts. Motion to approve by Councilmember Juan, second by Vice Chair Bakhtiari. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
7 yeas, 0 nays. Item is favorable. I believe that completes our legislative items.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
All right.
That takes us back to Section G, presentations, updates, and reports.
All right, Commissioner Ireland. Again, we have the first quarter from last year. If you want to browse through that and ask any questions at the end of this presentation, the Commissioner will be presenting the second quarterly. Commissioner.
Good morning, Council. Chair, thank you for giving us the opportunity to update on what the department has done and talk a little bit about where the department's going and what we're working on. I'm waiting for the presentation to come up. Starting with our organizational chart, we did introduce our team last council meeting. What we're doing here is we're filling our positions. We presently are in active recruitment and starting interviews for assistant commissioner over our engineering and consent decree and watershed protection programs. We have added a lot of stability to our leadership. That's kind of been our focus. That has been our focus in the first 6 months that I was here is bringing that stability to our leadership team and filling open positions for our frontline staff. Accomplishments. Last year, we were recognized by the Government Finance Office Association for excellence in financial reporting. Last year, that's the 12th straight year Watershed has won that award and been recognized. We've also received the 2025 Innovation Award, and we were recognized as well with the national accreditation of NELAC. That is basically the accounting audit of chemistry and biology, that we are performing all our tests correctly. And so it's very important to have that accreditation. I mentioned hiring as being a priority. It's actually our top 3 priorities are hiring. We've made great strides in filling additional positions. We do struggle a little bit with our positions in our OWTR, Office of Water Treatment, that requires quite a few certifications. We are anticipating we will be submitting a number of abolishments for positions, and that will actually raise our vacancy rate because we'll be rolling extra help positions into those, well, we're going to abolish positions, but we're rolling in extra help positions to full-time regular positions. Some of the positions that we are going to abolish have been open for up to 2 years. We're going to have to go to the private sector and contract that work out presently. And so that could be, a lot of utilities do that. So they supplement their existing staff with electricians. They use private sector electricians and other technical positions. The reason we're having a hard time filling those positions is just being really competitive in that market. It's very costly to have those staff positions. We are tracking on budget. So we are slightly favorable on revenue as compared to last year. However, slightly behind an aggressive 2026 budget, but we do anticipate we will come in right near budget again for revenues. Regarding compliance, all of our water treatment plants were in compliance. We were recognized last year getting our Platinum Award, and we've had 6 years of no violations at our Chattahoochee water treatment plant. And so we continue to do very excellent things on the water side. We do have a number of challenges with our water treatment plants, and we'll be talking about more investment there. We are doing plant assessments right now where we're going in and doing condition assessments, and that will drive our capital plan in the coming years. And, you know, we were just earlier talking about, you know, unanticipated operating and capital costs. This will drive down those costs once we implement the capital improvement plans for those water treatment plants. I know we talk a lot about water main breaks. We talk about flooding a lot here in Atlanta. In our wastewater plants, RM Clayton in particular has, you know, attracted attention for negative reasons in the past year. We've fixed a lot of those issues at RM Clayton, and we are going to do substantial investment in the coming years at RM Clayton. However, our water treatment plants are the highest priority for investment. And the reason I say that is in order to have a water main break, you have to have pressure and you have to have clean water. You can't have either of those if our water treatment plants are not operating as they should. And so we will shift a lot of investment towards our water treatment plants in the coming years. Wastewater, we had a couple of violations at RM Clayton that's related to phosphorus, a nutrient. We did add additional nitrifiers to the system, which will better consume that phosphorus. Also at South River, we had some low oxygen numbers, dissolved oxygen numbers in our effluent, and we add additional blowers for aeration to raise those oxygen levels. We are doing condition assessments at our wastewater treatment plants as well. And so you'll see additional capital investment, not only at RM Clayton, but at South River and Utoy, and to further enhance our treatment. Talked about consent decree and significant investments that Atlanta has made over the past several decades. We've come a long ways in this city, and we are now below the national average for sanitary sewer overflows per 100 miles, which is a standard measure of performance for a utility. We outpace many other southeastern large cities. The national average is 4.5. We're at 3.4 SSOs per 100 miles, and I anticipate when we refresh those numbers here in the coming months, that it'll be even lower. And when we finish some of the existing projects we're working on right now in the consent decree, when those projects are finished, our numbers will be even lower. And so we've made remarkable progress and are outperforming most utilities in the United States presently. I talked about our investments and our spills reduction over the past several decades. And as you can see, the purple line starting back in 2001, it was quite high. We had a lot of spills here in Atlanta. I had the opportunity to meet with former Mayor Shirley Franklin and the person that was in my role several decades ago, and they told me that we've really come a long ways from when what they were facing when they were with the city. And we should be recognized for that work. If you look at investment, so you look at the steady investment we've had in the consent decree, that's represented by the green line there. That investment has continued. And if you look at the last couple of years that we're in now with the consent decree, you see the costs are going up quite high if we indeed complete all the projects that are listed in the consent decree. And the return that we're getting as far as reduction of spills is it's very marginal. So costs are going up exponentially, but what we're actually gaining is less than exponential. And so we are saying that, you know, we believe we've met a lot of the requirements in the consent decree, if not the spirit of the consent decree. And we are presently actively collaborating with the EPA, and we've met with them twice, and we're going to meet with them again here shortly, and they've been great partners. They've been great partners for the city for several decades, and they'll continue to be great partners. And we are working on a collaborative solution for Atlanta. So if we look at the red line, which represents all the projects in the consent decree that are remaining, and we look at the green, I think that's green dashed line, if we're able to just finish the projects we're working on now and not have to complete every project listed in the consent decree, it could free up potentially $600 to $700 million that's encumbered towards the consent decree to be reinvested in other parts of the utility. I mentioned capital spending. It's not that we don't spend a lot of money on infrastructure here in Atlanta. We do. We've invested more in our infrastructure than most cities. You know, I've explained to you last year, and I know we have some new council members this year, and as well as some new council members on this committee. Cities east of the Mississippi, most cities east of the Mississippi were built out prior to the Clean Water Act, Atlanta being a great example of that. Atlanta in 1970 was, you know, its downtown infrastructure was built. 1972, the Clean Water Act came out and said, you know, here's all the rules that you have to adhere to. For Atlanta, that makes it really challenging. We've already built our infrastructure. And the other thing that makes it very challenging for Atlanta versus other cities east of the Mississippi is our rainfall. How much rain we get and how it falls. We get very intense rainfall events. So it's very difficult to both reduce combined sewer overflows and sanitary sewer overflows. It's more difficult here in Atlanta than it is in other cities. It's especially more difficult than cities on the West Coast. A lot of cities on the West Coast built most of their infrastructure post-1972. So they had the rules in hand, number one. Number two, how it rains in the West Coast is much different than how it rains in the Southeast. I say it all the time because I'm from the Pacific Northwest. It rains as much here in 3 hours as it does for 3 days in the Pacific Northwest. So how it rains. So if you look at our investment, you can see it right there. Our investment in the consent decree, we're over $600 million presently tied up. And if you go down to water distribution, it's less than 60 million. So it's more than 10 to 1 we're spending in capital dollars on the consent decree. We're looking for some relief, and if we're able to finish that consent decree and call it basically complete, we'll be able to shift that investment around other parts of the utility. Regarding metrics, we have a more exhaustive list in your appendices. However, we are benchmarking right now against our 24-month rolling average, doing that to kind of take out the seasonality of our numbers. And for example, if you look at breaks, we're up 122%. That's what we would expect. We're in break season. We were getting into break season last quarter, and I would expect next quarter, the quarter we're in right now, those numbers will be high again, and they'll roll back once the temperatures go back up. Our breaks will continue to increase until we substantially invest in our water infrastructure. That's coming. The administration last year announced a very aggressive investment plan moving ahead for our water distribution system, and we do have program management coming. We have the Army Corps study that is just about complete, and that investment for our water system, our water distribution system, our water plants is coming. Very challenging year for tastes in our water. If you thought the water tasted bad this year, it did. We had the highest levels of MIB and Jimson in our water. It's the highest recorded levels and concentrations by 10-fold. So we get our water from Lake Lanier, and the concentrations up there were at a historical high. The last big outbreak was in 2009, and as I mentioned, concentrations were 10 times higher than that this year. There were concentrations of 1,000 parts per trillion in Lake Lanier of MIB. That's detectable. We can detect it at 1 part per trillion in the taste, but they were as high as 1,000. It's harmless, but it does create that earthy taste to our water. Had the very same kind of outbreak in Houston in 2024, where concentrations went way up in the fall and then subsided in the spring. It's not something that is going to happen every year. It could be another 10 years, 15 years before we have another outbreak like we did this past year. However, it could happen again next year. There are ways to treat that, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Our number of complaints for tastes reached a high of about 15 calls per day in October. In December, we only received 1 call total in December. So complaints about our water did go down, because the concentration of MIB and ginseng went way down, and B, it could be because people called and made their complaint and were tired of calling. But now the water is tasting a lot better. So we would anticipate we're out of this zone for we don't know how long. It's not well understood. We are studying it. Other utilities are studying it. Most utilities that get water from all the utilities that get water from the Chattahoochee this past year struggled with it. What can we do about it when we have it? Well, we can add activated carbon, and we do that here. We do add activated carbon. That helps with the flavor and odor of the water. It doesn't 100% eliminate it. Things like ozone are more effective at eliminating the taste and odor issues. However, the ozone, to have the ozone system, it's costly. And if it's just going to be used every 10 years or every 5 years, then it may not be worth the investment, but we'll be looking at ozone as a possible remedy when we go in to upgrade these plants to go ahead and put in ozone as well. We had the lead copper letters go out as a percentage as a utility. We have the lowest percentage of our utilities in the local area, like DeKalb County. We have the lowest percentage of letters go to our customers. 42,000 letters, about 22% of our customers. That letter was required by the EPA that we send that out. Also, the language was drafted by them, and so we couldn't change it. I know there was some confusion about that letters. We are going to continue testing for lead, and we are trying to get to the level of testing that the EPA will accept that we are a lead-free system. So we have not found a lead service to date. It's a part of the city's system, but we'll continue to look. After 1986, it was banned by the EPA that you could not use lead in construction. We had retirees, and we always like to end with celebrating those who served, and these are retirees from our last quarter. And then you have appendix that has additional information. I will talk just briefly about AMI. We are in that pilot. It is very important to our future as a utility. It will better, we'll be able to bill more accurately, and we'll be able to have real-time information for our customers that they can access so they know how much water they've used in a day, how much water they're using presently, how much water they've used in a month, what their bill is so far, very much like your cell phone. It also measures pressure, temperature, and so we'll have real-time water quality data that will help us manage our system, detect where leaks are, detect where main breaks are. We're going to be partnering with Georgia Tech and their STING program, and we want to make a interface with our customers that people can use and make it user-friendly on their phones. And so that's what we're going to engage them with and come up with a product, I think, that will be unique to Atlanta that potentially could be adopted by basically utilities from around the country. Presently we bill people based on usage from the prior month. And I've made the comparison that would be like taking your speedometer out of your car and taking all the road signs with the speed limits down, and at the end of the month, we will tell you how fast you were driving, and you'll get a bill from us. We're not unique in that way. Most utilities bill like we bill. Probably a third of them are using more advanced AMI meters. That's where we're headed. And that's all I have. Questions?
Our colleagues, if you have any questions or comments for the commissioner, please indicate with your speaker button. Go to first, Councilmember Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. It's always good to see you. A few questions for you. The first one is related to the consent decree. I know the department is looking at shifting the city from out underneath the consent decree. Just trying to think, what does that mean? I know you said up to $700 million of flexibility that we'd be able to implement. will we have restrictions on what sort of projects that money could be used for? And the reason why I ask is I know my colleague Councilman Bakhtiari a couple years ago had a heat vulnerability study done across the city of Atlanta. One of the recommendations that came out of that was looking at opportunities to plant street trees as a way to mitigate the heat island effect in communities across the city. We know that street trees also help with water management, particularly stormwater management. It's been an issue that we've had with GDOT in my community, where they've ripped out a lot of trees along the interchanges in communities that are experiencing flooding. Would that be something that the department could look at as a potential tool to address stormwater, not just street trees, but also the type of materials that we're, in partnership with ATL DOT, the type of materials we're using for sidewalks? I know we have a $1.something billion sidewalk gap across the city, but just leveraging other tools, non-typical tools, non-traditional tools as a way to mitigate stormwater management or to address stormwater management.
Yeah, that's a great question. We do have restrictions on what we can spend money on with the utility, and so that would be one of the advantages to a stormwater utility is it enables you to spend, specifically on stormwater. However, what you're talking about, thermal credits is what you're talking about. So thermal credits are a great way to mitigate adding additional heat to our receiving streams, most specifically the Chattahoochee River, which is very sensitive. It has game fish in it, like trout. And there are a lot of utilities that manage their thermal load through exactly what you're talking about, planting trees. I know one utility that planted 32,000 trees in 1 year, and they get regulatory credit for that, for reducing the thermal load on the receiving streams. So it's a great way, a natural way to deal with another type of pollutant, which is heat, thermal pollution.
And then I guess similar to that, if we don't have projects identified with the money that we would be able to have more flexibility for, could that potentially also mean savings for taxpayers? I know utilities relief is something we've talked about a lot. Our citizens are being hurt in their pocketbooks because of cost of energy, cost of gas, cost of all these sorts of things. And if there's an opportunity for the city to help provide relief, because if we're no longer under consent decree, then maybe there might be an opportunity to also provide some relief to our ratepayers as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of other investment that I was trying to point that out. There's a lot of other investment that we need to reinvest and kind of catch up. We just need, we need to catch up in some areas.
Okay.
So we need to invest those dollars, most specifically our water treatment plants and our water distribution system.
Okay, good, heard. And then the taste and odor reporting piece is very interesting to me. The numbers that you shared were the materials that y'all found in y'all's testing. I'm curious, we are not the only municipality that gets our water from Lake Lanier. Is Lake Lanier managed by DNR? Is that Corps of Engineers? Who, I guess, oversees the concentration of algae and glycerin and all the other things you had mentioned? I'm not a scientist, so I might be using terms incorrectly, but who manages that before it comes downstream to the city of Atlanta?
So I believe the Army Corps is the primary regulator of Lake Lanier. There's, you're talking about like non-source point runoff, creating, with additional nutrients, fertilizers, creating additional algae blooms, which leads to these types of issues. There's a lot of entities involved with that. You're getting into ag, you're getting into forestry. So the non-point source pollutants are among the most difficult to regulate. So it falls on the state and a little bit of the federal government as well.
And I was going to ask, are they taking any steps? I know it sounds complicated, but are they looking at ways in which they can use their levers to mitigate so there's less impact for the city of Atlanta to have to address when it comes downstream to us?
Yeah, so regionally, we're going to put more money towards funding research of exactly the cause and effect of these particular blooms that cause these odors and taste issues. So, we think we know some of it, but it's not super well understood. For example, this year, we had a couple circumstances that were unique that happened at the same time. So if you recall, it rained until midsummer, and then it just stopped raining. And the level dropped in the Lake Lanier, and now it's about 6 feet below full pool. So it dropped, plus it stayed warm, and then all of a sudden got cold. So the lake turned over quickly, and you had less water in the lake. It turned over quickly, so that concentration of the MIB in Jimson, in theory, was higher. That's what we believe happened, but we don't know exactly that's what happened.
Okay. And then my last question, and it's going to be connected to one of the committee goals I'm going to send your way, Mr. Chair. But about 6 years ago, Department of Watershed Management was pursuing an update to our city's post-detention stormwater management ordinance, trying to get our private development partners to do more to address stormwater runoff in our communities. And my hope is that we can revisit that, recognizing that the consent decree is a big part of the work that your department is doing. So if we're able to get out from underneath that consent decree, I would like to explore that as an additional way in which we can better serve the needs of our constituents in addressing flooding. I know, unfortunately, with the development agreement that was done with Centennial Yards, we had a lot of missed opportunities to address stormwater runoff in Proctor Creek, in the Proctor Creek watershed. And my hope is that between a post-detention stormwater management ordinance, new stormwater utility, and flexibility in the dollars that we currently have access to, that we can come back to our private partners that are looking for those funding opportunities to address stormwater runoff in a more intentional and comprehensive way. So I guess it's less of a question, more of a comment, that I want to make sure that we continue to use all of these tools to our ability, to the best of our ability, particularly for stormwater runoff issues. Flooding is impacting all of our communities in big ways. Climate change is accelerating the work that we've already been doing, or the need for the work we've been doing. The modeling that was in place 20 years ago doesn't apply today. And so I just want to make sure we're being as responsive and agile to our needs in that front as we may have talked about in the past, but I think we're in a place now we need to execute in a much more intentional way. So I'll leave it at that. And Mr. Chair, I yield.
Thank you, Councilmember Dozier. Councilmember Bakhtiari.
Thank you. Thanks, Commissioner. I'm going to go back in time a little bit because you came in after the water break that occurred. And if you'll excuse me, they're distracting me. I need y'all to bring it down a little bit. So real quick about when the water outage happened. One of the things that we found out at that time was that we were not sure when the lines were last CCTV'd. And I'm curious as to, and I know you came after this time, some of the issues that we had were we didn't know when the last time the lines had been looked at. And the second was that we did not know if we were properly stockpiled for certain materials and equipment. And then additionally, the replacement plan. I know that there was supposed to be a meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers, and I was hoping you could speak a little bit to that.
Sure. So a lot's changed since then.
Yeah.
The city's taken a lot of steps to we're not saying that a break can't occur again. We will have more breaks.
Of course.
That's inevitable. We have added a lot more detection, and so we've in that whole detection process, we identified areas that had leaks already. Moderate to high leaks. We've gone in and repaired many of those sections of pipe. Also, we have better prepared as far as materials to address leaks in a larger diameter. And we're continuing that effort of having the right pipe, the right valves, so they're more available. And then thirdly is, you mentioned the Army Corps. That study's, the final study's about ready to land. We've seen enough of the draft study to know kind of where we are as a city. You know, we're a little bit higher than the national average for breaks. We're below the average of some other larger cities. I mentioned Chicago, Baltimore. We're below their levels, but what's concerning for us is the rate at which our breaks will continue to increase unless we invest heavily in replacing that pipe. That's why the mayor announced the initiative last year, and that's where we're headed. And it's just going to take time to flatten that break curve, and that's what I'm going to be talking a lot about: flatten the curve, flatten the curve. So it's going to take steady investment. Just you take those results we just got from that I just showed you from the spillage over the last 3 decades, and we did a remarkable job. My prediction is 3 decades from now, you can just change the heading of that to water main breaks, and we will have substantially reduced our water main breaks. So what we've shown through the consent decree is when Atlanta puts its mind to something and it's going to do something and invest in it, it's going to see the results. And we've gone from a city that had a lot of spills, a lot of pollution, to now we're outpacing most of the cities in the United States, and we'll continue that trend. So water main breaks will, in the future, will go down.
Thank you. So that's good to hear, because I think one of the things that the outage discovered was that we were not preemptively planning as much as we should have. So that I'm glad to hear that and look forward to hearing the rest of the report. In terms of the pieces that you talked about around pollution and what we're dealing with there, you mentioned the state, and I'm just wondering, I think one of the issues we're going to continue to deal with is the state reducing setbacks for waterways and development close to that. Do we have, I don't really know what we do there, because it feels that the activity that's taking place in state laws that are, I mean, I think we're over $3 billion invested in the Chattahoochee for cleanup at this point. And I'm curious, do we, I don't know what plan we can come up with, but do we have a plan for what that means in terms of increased dumping of fertilizer, other issues, silt pollution, sediment pollution? Do we have an idea of how we will plan for that? Because it seems that we're going to have to constantly be playing cleanup after state or lack thereof, state regulations.
Well, our partners at the state, they've been great to work with. They're a big part of our meetings with the EPA. They're at the table there with us, and they've been great partners so far. And you know, as I mentioned before, the non-point pollution issue is a nationwide issue that's difficult to regulate, and that's where, you know, stormwater runoff, that's where green infrastructure makes a bigger difference. Is green infrastructure not only helps reduce nuisance flooding, but it uses nature to treat that water before it enters our receiving streams. It slows it down, treats it a little bit, and then it enters the receiving stream. So that's where green infrastructure can make a big difference in a stormwater utility.
And thank you. One of the things also, speaking of climate issues, increased rainfall or any of those situations, one of the things that I have constantly been thinking about since we discussed what you had to deal with in Houston and our plants not being prepared for when an environmental disaster occurs. If we had been hit by the hurricane that ended up shifting at the last minute and hitting Asheville instead, I know that most of our plants probably would have been underwater. So it's not a matter of, I see it as not a matter of if, but when. I think most of us would agree in this room. Is there something that we are doing to prepare for that inevitability?
Yeah, when we do plan upgrades now and we go through our assessments, the amount of sustainability and resiliency that we build into our plants is different than it was in the past. So we try to think more and more ahead about those types of issues that we're going to face. You know, I've been through a couple ice storms, one of which we were without power for a week. I've been through 2 hurricanes in 2023, one of the treatment plants I managed in Houston was hit direct by a EF3 tornado. Hard to mitigate that one. But the plant was only down for 23 hours and 58 minutes. So we didn't go a full day without treatment. So
A little bit, 2 minutes shy. That was good.
So yeah, we build that in our thinking. You know, when people design the plants we have, you know, Chattahoochee is, I think, 70 years old. Hemphill's 107 years old. Not all of the plant, but these older plants, you know, they did the best they could when they designed them. And now we're doing the best we can with the information we have today. And we'll make them better. And the people that design them 50 years from now will do better than we are.
Thank you. And you'll have to forgive me for my jumping around of random questions. I'm not very good at asking them in any type of order. That is really helpful because it's something that's constantly on my mind. The other question I have regarding the carbon situation, everything that we dealt with, obviously some of my neighborhoods were quite worried, and it is complex. I did not understand it until you explained it to me, and members of your staff took time to explain it to me as well. Water, obviously, people don't, without knowledge, they don't think rationally. If they see yellow water or water that smells a certain way or something coming out of the tap, even though by all means, by all regulations, by everything else, it is within safe drinking standards. Comms-wise, because we deal with panic and then people start jumping to their own conclusions and then they get on things like Nextdoor or Facebook and work themselves up into a frenzy because social media is the devil. So my question to you is, what could we do comms-wise? Is there something that we can prepare for, because it is an inevitability that these issues are going to occur? In terms of communications, I felt that was lacking during this time, but obviously, no pun intended, y'all were underwater. So question being, what can we change moving forward?
Yeah, every time we do something, whether it's a project, a street closure at, say, 10th and Piedmont, or we send out letters, lead copper letter, we're gonna do a shutdown and rebuild a pump station near a school and impact them for a couple months. Every time we do that and we communicate, we learn something new about how we can do that better. And the same thing was, you know, with the issues you were having there in the part of your district. We're learning how we can do better. And so we continue to use every resource that we have, from social media to showing up at people's place of business to let them know we're coming and there's going to be an impact. We're doing everything we can to communicate that. Water is a very difficult issue to communicate about. People don't think about water until they don't have it. And then that's all they can think about. And so water, you know, we take it for granted, and then when you turn on that faucet and there's no water, or you turn on that faucet and it's a different color, it might be safe to drink, but you don't want to drink it. Yeah, we're learning. Every time we learn something new.
Okay, thank you. And then last question is just something about, it's a small thing, remediation. I think that there's been an inconsistency in completing remediations with watershed. I'm sure that's something we can continue to work on. And just like a small thing for me is, what I've noticed is when we're doing repairs, obviously pushed for time, but there's a lack of settling of backfill. And so we're ending up with a repaving, backfill settles, we end up with the sunken street, in which ATL DOT has to come back to try to repair, but that's a backlog, so it's going to be quite some time. Is there a way to improve upon that so we don't still have that sunken issue that's occurring?
Yeah, and that is going to be both the addition of additional staff working on that, as well as probably contracting additional resources from the private sector to help us with when the load is really high. For example, when you're doing a lot of water main repair, that means you have a lot of remediation too. We had a saying in Houston, the repair isn't complete until the remediation is complete. Because we would get those calls where people say, hey, you know, it's still not fixed. Well, the water leak was fixed, But what they were talking about was the hole in the sidewalk and their yard ripped up and the street in front of them still
Yeah.
gravel. That's what they're talking about.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. Chair, that concludes my questions. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Councilmember Bakhtiari. Councilmember Juan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. I want to go back to the consent decree conversation because it sounds to me that in the conversations that you're having with the federal government that I just want to make sure in my mind, 3 potential scenarios. One is that we ask for an extension, and they maintain the current scope, so we just have to continue figuring out a way to complete. There's a second one is an extension, but a reduced scope in terms of projects and requirements. And the third one is, you didn't really say it, but is a scenario whereby we might actually be seeking just a declaration of compliance and we're done in 2027. Is that correct?
I will say all of those
Okay.
are in play. So, yes.
Okay. What's the timing on the decision on that, do you think?
Well, I can't give you an answer on that. I think we're working towards some form of resolution. We're providing additional data for them to show that indeed we are where we say we are. In fact, we may even be better than where we say we are. So, yeah, we'll just see where that conversation takes us. The consent decree says, and a lot of them were written this way around the country, and you got to remember we had one of the very first consent decrees in the United States. Right. The consent decree says we will have 0 SSOs per 100 miles. You won't have any. Every utility in the United States has SSOs. Even the most sophisticated, well-funded utility has a sanitary sewer overflow. So 0 is not possible.
Right.
So if it's not 0, then what is it?
Well, fingers crossed, and I just want to acknowledge too, I mean, this is one of those, well, I'm sure there will be many, but one of those moments that I wish Howard Shook were sitting in up here with us. Him, along with Councilmember Mary Norwood, were here making those tough decisions back in 20 years ago that had gotten us to this point where we're actually potentially looking at a completion of the consent decree. So I just want to at least acknowledge that work that happened then and where we're at. And then with that, I also would advocate, as you said, that if we are able to get to that point and we have those resources, that capacity freed up, I do think the preventive work in terms of line replacement and all that it should be our priority because of the preventive cost is much less than a reactive cost. Yeah. I did want to flip real quickly to the your staffing level. Mm-hmm. So I was looking at Q3, Q1, and Q2 numbers, and your total positions are going up. Is that a vacancy review board result? I mean, y'all have gone and asked and gotten approved, or because I don't recall a personnel paper that we've seen those additions.
Yeah, we're counting our positions. We included our extra help positions this time because they're working here, they're getting benefits. And so what we're doing is rolling those extra help positions into positions that vacancies created by an abolishment.
Okay. I think I'm putting my finance committee hat on here though, is just still trying to get a feel for what our appropriate run rate staffing levels are across all departments. And so I think this is just something I'm going to keep watching. And the reason is if you're rolling extra help positions up, you also said something about that you see the need or likelihood of going to the private sector to find services for the vacant positions that we don't have. So I just don't want us to be in a situation where we are now inflating our our positions. If we're going to go outside and get contracts, then I think what we need to do is go in and abolish the positions that we were originally going to, the vacant positions that we were going to use to do that, so that we're keeping a very kind of tight rein on all this.
That's what we are doing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we are doing.
Okay, I know that we've got a personnel paper coming through FEC during these next couple of cycles, so we'll have that more detailed conversation in that forum.
Yeah, and use of the private sector is what's done in a lot of the other utilities.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine. Yeah, I think I support that because we got to get the work done. It's just let's make sure that when we do that, that we're shifting our numbers in the appropriate places to reflect that. So, Mr. Chair, I yield. Thank you.
And Councilmember Juan. Commissioner, I'll just reiterate a point that Councilmember Bakhtiari brought up and we have talked about before, the dire need for a restoration overhaul. So looking forward to hearing more about that and seeing more about that. You touched on it a little bit, but when can we, or I, and then we, given it's in my district, get more details about the RM-Clayton plan and improvements, odor control study, et cetera, everything that has been studied and planned there over the past year plus. When can I expect an update on that?
It'll be very soon. So we had to go through a process with Chattahoochee Riverkeeper, and we, frankly, we partnered with them to come up with the path forward, and we're just waiting for all the formalities and legalese, associated with that consent order to all dry, and then we'll make that more available of where we're headed. So we're going to be in a continual path of replace, rehab, and redesign in the utility forevermore. We're never there, because by the time we get there, there has moved.
Understood. And an item I always bring up in these, even dropping in on meetings where I wasn't on the committee, but many of your predecessors before, the hydrant leak repairs and replacements. They've always been very low. I see you have a note here about there's only 3 crews assigned to hydrant leak repairs, over 25,000 hydrants. Of course, we don't have 25,000 hydrants down at any given time. But number one, do you have any clue how many we currently have down? And are there efforts to improve these numbers? Because they come to me giving that I'm on the Public Safety Committee, and I see these news stories where our firefighters are going to these fires and they tap one hydrant and it doesn't work. They tap another hydrant, it doesn't work. They tap a third hydrant, it barely flows. And so what is the current status of that? And what is your plan to improve upon those numbers and that issue?
Yeah, two things. Is one, we just hired a new deputy commissioner for the Office of Linear Infrastructure. First deputy commissioner we've had in a full-time status role for over 3 years. I will both reach out to you directly as well as report back to the whole committee next quarter on what our status is, what the plan is moving forward. But between now and then, I will give you that status update. I'm just not prepared to give it to you right now.
All right. Well, thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions, colleagues? All right. Thank you very much. You and your team.
Oh, just one point. I want to recognize our team. We are fortunate that we got a near miss on the ice storm. However, we were fully deployed. We had 325 people 24/7 actively engaged in standby, and the utility really, we're lucky that we didn't have any impacts related to power. And our water main breaks are high right now. It's cold, and we're responding to those, but we're just ready for the next round.
Councilmember Bakhtiari.
I just wanted to say real quick, the emergency preparedness piece, really thanks to you all and the administration, it was really, really, really well put together. So thank you all.
Mr. Pace, I was going to ask if you were still here. You almost got out. I know it's
trying to, Mr. Chair.
I do not believe it is watershed and probably not under our purview, but do you have any updates on the Midtown underground fire that caused the power outage? Have you heard anything from Georgia Power on that?
I do not, Mr. Chair, but I can find something out for you fairly quickly.
Okay, I just wanted to ask, but thank you.
Will do. Appreciate it.
Is that all we have, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
All right. That concludes our meeting, and we are adjourned.